Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story that's a little less epic hero saves the day, and a lot more epic hero gets absolutely dunked on by fate. We're going to walk through the many times the mighty Thor, the god of thunder, found out the hard way that crossing the wrong people or even the right people in the wrong way can lead to a truly miserable existence. We're talking about a god who could shatter mountains with his hammer, Mjolnir, but who also had to deal with the cosmic equivalent of a really bad day at the office, over and over again. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the heart of Asgard, the golden halls of Valhalla stretching out before you. The air hums with the energy of 1,000 forgotten battles. The clinking of tankards and the booming laughter of the Aesir are constant. Comforting backdrop. You're here, not as a god, but as a spectator, a ghost in the machine of history, watching as the grand tapestry of Norse mythology unfolds. And right now, all eyes are on Thor. He's not the burly, wise-cracking hero you might be picturing from a certain popular franchise. No, this Thor is a force of nature, a red-bearded tempest of raw power. His temper is legendary, his strength unmatched, and his preferred method of problem-solving is to hit things, usually with Mjolnir. He is the defender of Asgard and Midgard, the very personification of strength and protection. To cross him is, for all intents and purposes, a death sentence, or so you'd think. The truth is, for all his might, Thor is not invincible, and he's certainly not immune to the machinations of others. You see him now, leaning back on a great bench carved from a single piece of ancient oak, his thunderous laughter shaking the rafters, a mug of ale, big enough to drown a mortal, is clutched in his hand. He is in his element, surrounded by the adulation of his fellow gods. But even as he revels in this moment, a shadow is falling over Asgard, a whisper of a conflict that will humble the thunder god in ways he can't yet imagine. The problem is simple: a frost giant, a Jotun, has dared to mock him. A being of ice and stone from the unforgiving land of Jotunheim has committed the ultimate insult, a slight so brazen and so public that it cannot be ignored. The historical consensus is that this wasn't just a random act of disrespect. It was a carefully calculated move, a gambit designed to provoke a specific, powerful reaction. The name of the giant is Thrym, and he has a plan that is as audacious as it is cruel. You watch as the news reaches Thor. His laughter dies in his throat, replaced by a low, guttural growl that vibrates through the very foundations of the hall. His face, usually a mask of boisterous joy, tightens into a thunderous scowl. He rises, a mountain of muscle and rage, and the other gods instinctively pull back. This is not the time to be near the god of thunder. Thrym's mockery isn't just a few choice words, it's a direct challenge to Thor's authority and his very identity. It's the kind of insult that questions a god's purpose, his power, and his right to protect. It's like a playground bully calling you out in front of everyone. But the playground is the 9 realms and the bully is a multi-ton ice giant, and the consequences are far worse than a bruised ego. You can almost feel the heat radiating off Thor as his anger builds, a tangible pressure in the air that makes your hair stand on end. This is the very essence of the problem with Thor. He is predictable. His enemies know that if you poke the bear will charge. They can manipulate him, not with physical force, but with psychological games, with insults and challenges that he, by his very nature, cannot ignore. And so, Thrym's gambit works perfectly. Thor, consumed by his fury, immediately begins to plot his retribution, but even as he prepares for a direct assault on Jotunheim, he is stopped by another god, one who is far more clever and far less likely to solve problems with a hammer. That god is Loki, the trickster. Loki, of course, has his own motivations, but for now, his role is to calm Thor down and find a more subtle solution. This is a fascinating historical point. By the way, the idea that the gods, for all their power, were still subject to social and political manoeuvring, and that brute force wasn't always the answer. The gods were, in many ways, just a really powerful, dysfunctional family. Loki, ever the pragmatist, knows that a direct, head-on assault will likely lead to an all-out war with the frost giants, a conflict that Asgard may not be ready for. He suggests a more subtle approach, a diplomatic mission with a twist. The problem is, Thor's temper is a runaway freight train. He wants to go to Jotunheimer, bash Thrym's head in, and retrieve the stolen honour. But what if the honour and the insult are just a distraction? What if there's more to this than a simple case of hurt feelings? The sagas themselves, an often overlooked detail, sometimes hint at the possibility that Thrym's actions were not just an insult, but a carefully orchestrated play to acquire a powerful artifact or gain a strategic advantage. It's a point historians still debate. Was it personal, or was it a cold, hard political move? We might never know for sure, but for our purposes, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Thor is ready to respond with thunder, and Loki is preparing a different kind of weapon deception. You're starting to see a pattern here, aren't you? Thor, for all his power, is often a tool in the hands of others. He is the ultimate blunt instrument, and others like Loki, in this case, are the clever strategists who wield him. Loki sees Thor's anger not as a problem, but as an opportunity. He knows Thrym's weakness, his vanity, his desire to not just beat Thor, but to humiliate him publicly. And so, Loki begins to hatch a plan that will turn the tables on the frost giant, a plan so preposterous, so utterly ridiculous, that it just might work. You can almost see the mischievous glint in his eye as he considers the possibilities. It's a classic setup, the big, strong, lovable oaf and the cunning, mischievous best friend, a tale as old as time. Really, Loki's plan is simple, elegant, and deeply humiliating for Thor, but for the god of thunder, who is so used to winning, humiliation is a fate worse than death, and you, as a silent observer, can only watch as the pieces are set in motion. This whole ordeal, you realize, is not just about a stolen hammer or a bruised ego. It's about a god being forced to confront his own limitations, his own predictable nature. It's about the fact that even for a being of immense power, there are forces in the world like cunning and trickery and the cold, hard reality of politics that are far more dangerous than any sword or club. The stage is set for a confrontation, but it won't be a glorious, thunderous battle. It will be something much more mundane, much more embarrassing, and ultimately far more miserable for the mighty Thor. This is the cruel irony of Thor's life. He is the god of strength, the very embodiment of power. Yet his most significant challenges don't come from powerful enemies he can defeat in a fair fight. They come from tricksters, from deceivers, and from his own predictable rage, Thrym's mockery, while a simple act of aggression is the pebble that starts an avalanche, the small spark that ignites a much larger, more complex fire, and as the fire spreads, it will consume not just the giant who started it, but also the very honour and dignity of the god who tried to extinguish it. You are about to witness the beginning of Thor's long, slow descent into a series of comedic and tragic misadventures, all because he couldn't just let a slight go. Sometimes. The most powerful people are also the most vulnerable, and their strength is their greatest weakness. As Thor prepares to unleash his fury, he has no idea that he's about to be played, not with a hammer, but with a simple, humiliating little joke. You're watching the scene unfold, The great hall, once filled with uproarious celebration, is now tense and silent. Every god and goddess is holding their breath, waiting for Thor to act. The air itself feels thick, heavy with the weight of his anger. You can see Odin, the All-Father, looking on with a mixture of concern and a certain world-weary resignation. He knows his son, knows that his temper is a blessing and a curse. This raw, untamed fury is what makes him such a formidable defender. But it's also what makes him so easy to bait. You can't help but feel a little sympathy for Thor. It's hard to be the biggest, strongest person in the room when everyone else is playing a game you don't understand. It's like being a star athlete who gets tricked into a game of chess. You're on the wrong playing field, and your best moves don't count for anything. Loki glides over to Thor, his movements fluid and unhurried, a stark contrast to Thor's simmering intensity. He places a hand on Thor's massive arm, and for a moment, you worry he's about to be vaporized by the sheer heat of Thor's rage, but the thunder god just turns his angry glare toward the trickster. You see Loki begin to whisper, his voice low and conspiratorial, the very essence of a man who knows a secret you don't. He's not telling Thor to calm down, not really. He's speaking to him in the language of vengeance, but a vengeance that is more satisfying and complete than simple head-bashing. He's painting a picture of Thrym's humiliation, not just his destruction. He's promising a sweeter kind of revenge. It's in this whispered conversation that you see a different side of the gods. For all their power, they are still creatures of ego, of pride, of a deep-seated need for respect. An insult to Thor is an insult to all of Asgard, a crack in the foundation of their divine authority. But the way to mend that crack isn't always through blunt force. Sometimes you have to be clever, you have to be a little bit sneaky, you have to play the game, and for that, you need Loki. He is the master of the game, the one who understands that appearances matter more than reality, and that a well-crafted deception can be a more powerful weapon than any hammer. And what about Thrym? What did he hope to gain from this? The sagas offer various reasons, from a simple desire to lord his superiority over the Aesir to a more complex political move. A lesser-known detail of these myths is the constant, simmering tension between the giants and the gods. This wasn't just a rivalry, it was a cold war, a struggle for dominance over the very fabric of existence. Thrym's mockery wasn't just an insult, it was a diplomatic incident, an act of psychological warfare designed to test the limits of Asgard's patience. Historians still debate whether this was Thrym's idea alone, or if he was being manipulated by an even more powerful force, a larger scheme to weaken the gods from within. Whatever the truth, the effect is the same. Thor is furious, and he is about to step into a trap he doesn't even know exists, as the idea of a clever, more humiliating revenge takes root in Thor's mind. You see the fire in his eyes shift from simple rage to a glint of something else, cunning, or at least his version of it. He's still thinking in the terms of destruction, but now it's a more targeted destruction, a more satisfying kind of payback. He nods, a slow, deliberate movement that sends ripples of relief through the hall. Loki's plan is green-lit, and you can't help but smile a little bit at the sheer absurdity of it all. You know what's coming, don't you? You know that this clever plan is going to involve Thor, the god of thunder, doing something completely and utterly ridiculous. You know that for all his talk of vengeance, he's about to become a punchline. This whole situation is a masterclass in how to make the most powerful person in the room feel completely helpless. Think about it from Thrym's perspective. He's a giant, a being of immense size and strength, but he's not a god. He lives in a cold, desolate land. His life is one of constant struggle. The gods, by contrast, live in luxury and splendour. So, for him to get the chance to publicly mock and humiliate Thor, the greatest among them, is a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. He's not just insulting a god. He's striking a blow against a social order he despises. He's poking the most fearsome beast in the entire 9 realms, and he's doing it with a smile on his face. You can almost hear him chuckling to himself in his ice fortress, imagining the look on Thor's face when he hears the news. Little does he know, however, that while he thinks he's in control, he too is being manipulated by a force more cunning than he can ever hope to be Loki. It's all just a big, cosmic game of chess, and Thor is the queen, the most powerful piece on the board, but also the one that gets moved around the most. He's the one who gets sacrificed to win the long game, and as you watch him agree to Loki's plan, you know that this is just the beginning. This insult is a preamble, a trailer for a much longer, much more embarrassing movie. Thor is about to embark on a journey that will test his patience, his strength, and his dignity in ways he never thought possible. And the funniest part is, he's going into it thinking he's the one in charge. He's going to get his revenge. Alright, he's just going to have to suffer for it first. You're about to witness a god, a being of immense power, being brought low by something as simple as a giant's words and a trickster's smile. It's a humbling sight, and it's a story you won't soon forget. So, sit back, relax, and let's watch the misery unfold. You are still there, a silent observer in the heart of Asgard, the tension from Thor's fury still hanging in the air like ozone after a lightning strike. The last whispers of his rage have died down, replaced now by a more chilling, pervasive dread. The source of this newfound anxiety is simple, and it strikes at the very core of Thor's identity, and indeed, at the safety of all the realms. Mjolnir is gone, not misplaced, not on a quick trip to an outer realm to smash something and return. It is truly, utterly missing, the kind of gone that makes your stomach drop when you realise your phone isn't in your pocket. Except in this case, the phone is a world-shattering hammer, and the pocket is the entire cosmos. The common historical fact here is that Mjolnir was more than just a weapon. It was the physical manifestation of Thor's power, his link to the thunder and lightning, and the primary tool for protecting Asgard and Midgard from the giants. Without it, Thor is still a god, but he's a god without his main gig. He's the world's most powerful bouncer without his bouncers list, the universe's most formidable carpenter without his trusty hammer. You watch him now, pacing the hall like a caged beast, running his massive hands through his thick red beard. The gods watch him, their faces a mix of concern and a kind of morbid curiosity. They've never seen him like this, powerless, impotent. His strength is still there, but it's a car without an engine, a ship without a sail. He's just a very large, very angry man. The shock and panic in Asgard are palpable. The gods and goddesses are whispering amongst themselves, their usual boisterous confidence replaced by a nervous energy. The theft of Mjolnir is an act of war, a declaration that the giants are not just a nuisance, but a legitimate threat. But who could have done it? And how the details of the theft itself are often glossed over in the sagas. But they paint a picture of a humiliatingly simple crime. Thor, a god so powerful he could topple mountains with a flick of his wrist, had apparently slept right through the theft. He'd woken up in his great bed, stretched, reached for his trusty hammer, and found nothing but cold, empty air. The thief must have been a master of stealth, or perhaps even of magic, to get past Asgard's defences and steal the most prized possession of its most powerful defender. It's like a world-famous security guard having his badge stolen while he's taking a nap in his chair. It's deeply, profoundly embarrassing. This is where Loki, the master of mischief, truly shines, while Thor is busy fuming and contemplating a raw, unthinking assault on Jotunheimer with his bare hands. Loki is already at work. He knows brute force won't solve this. He knows they need information. So, he approaches the goddess Freya, the most beautiful and desired of all the Aesir. The little known detail here is his method of travel. He asks her for her falcon cloak, a magical garment made of falcon feathers that allows its wearer to fly between realms. Freya, knowing the severity of the situation, agrees, but not without a certain wariness in her eyes. Historians still debate whether Freya's demand for her cloak was a genuine concern for her reputation or a strategic move to ensure Loki's mission was successful and she wouldn't be left vulnerable. Either way, Loki gets his cloak and, in a flash of feathers and magic, he's gone. A fleeting shadow against the golden light of Asgard. You're flying with him, not as a passenger, but as a consciousness in the current of time, seeing the realms flash by beneath you. Asgard's gleaming towers give way to the dark, craggy landscape of Jotunheimer, the land of the giants. It's a bleak, inhospitable place, all jagged ice and unforgiving stone, a world perpetually caught in the grip of a harsh, unforgiving winter. It's the kind of place you'd need 5 different jackets just to survive, and probably a really good thermos. As he descends, you can see the fortress of the giant Thrym, a formidable structure carved from a single, massive glacier. It's a cold, silent place, but as Loki lands, you hear a faint, self-satisfied chuckle echoing through the ice-carved halls. Inside, Thrym is gloating. He's a giant of immense proportions, his features chiselled from ice and cruelty. He's sitting on a throne of jagged stone, a smug look on his face. He knows Loki is there. He can feel the magic of the falcon cloak. He welcomes Loki with a false politeness, an insufferable grin plastered across his face. He is the cat who swallowed the canary, and he's ready to show off. And the canary, in this case, is Mjolnir. You don't see it, of course, because Thrym has hidden it, but he can't resist bragging. He declares, in a voice like an avalanche, that he has indeed stolen the hammer. He's hidden it 8 miles beneath the earth, a place so deep and so dark that no one but him knows its location. He's not just a thief, he's a showman, a grandmaster of dramatic reveals. But his biggest reveal is yet to come, with the hammer. He has leverage, the ultimate bargaining chip, and his demand is so audacious, so utterly ridiculous, that it almost beggars belief. He tells Loki that he will only return Mjolnir in exchange for a bride. Not just any bride, mind you. He wants Freya, the most beautiful, the most desired, the most powerful of all the goddesses. He wants to marry a goddess and, in doing so, become a king, a ruler of both realms. He wants to sit at the high table and be respected, not just feared. Is the ultimate power play, a move so brazen and insulting that it takes your breath away. It's the cosmic equivalent of holding a priceless work of art for ransom and demanding the Queen of England's hand in marriage. It's an absolutely bonkers request. But he has the hammer, so he has all the power. Loki, ever the diplomat, listens impassively, but you, as a silent witness, can feel the shock radiating from him. This is a problem far greater than a missing hammer. This is a full-blown crisis. A goddess, a queen of the Aesir, to be married off to a frost giant. The very thought of it would send a shiver down the spine of even the most ardent warrior. Loki knows he has to report back, but he also knows that this news will be met with a mixture of disbelief, outrage, and absolute fury. With his mission complete, he takes to the air once more, the bleakness of Jotunheimer receding behind him as he speeds back toward Asgard, the weight of the news a heavy stone in his heart. When he returns to Asgard, the gods immediately crowd around him, desperate for news. Thor is there, his face a mask of anxious anticipation. Loki, after returning Freya's cloak with a solemn nod, relays Thrym's demands, and that's when the real fireworks begin. The hall, which had been so silent and tense, erupts into a cacophony of outrage. The gods shout, the goddesses gasp. Odin, the All-Father, just watches, his single eye heavy with the burdens of 1,000,000 years. But the most powerful reaction comes from Freya herself. Her face, usually so serene and beautiful, twists with a divine, incandescent rage. She recoils, clutching her hands to her chest as if she's been physically struck. She does not want to marry a frost giant. The very idea is repugnant to her. She is not a pawn to be traded in a game of cosmic chess. And so, the gods are faced with an impossible choice. Give up Freya to a vile, gloating giant and, in doing so, sacrifice their dignity and the honour of one of their most powerful goddesses, or refuse the demand and lose Mjolnir forever, leaving Asgard and Midgard vulnerable to the forces of chaos. This is the comically desperate situation the outline promised. The gods, for all their power and glory, are utterly stumped. They have no good options. They're stuck between a rock and a giant, and both of them are making impossible demands. It's a moment of total, unmitigated crisis, and for the first time in a long time, the gods of Asgard feel truly and completely helpless. This is the very essence of what makes this story so fascinating. It's not just about a hero getting his hammer back, it's about the gods, the supposedly all-powerful beings, being forced to deal with a mundane, but utterly unsolvable problem. It's about pride and politics, and the difficult choices that even divine rulers have to make. They can't just fight their way out of this one. They can't just smite Thrym from a distance. They are forced to engage in a negotiation, a diplomatic dance with a creature they despise, and you, the silent observer, can see the wheels turning in their heads as they try to come up with a solution. But no one, not even Odin, has an answer. The situation is a complete stalemate, a cosmic standoff with the highest stakes imaginable. So what happens next? The gods are in a huddle, their furious whispers filling the hall. They are trapped, and their collective genius seems to have failed them. They have to find a way to get Mjolnir back without sacrificing Freya. And this, you realise, is where the humiliation begins. The gods, with no other choice, are going to have to do something they've never done before. They're going to have to stoop to the level of the giants, to play a trick on the trickster. They're going to have to use guile and deception, the very tools they usually reserve for Loki's punishments. And in this moment of divine desperation, the gears of the plan begin to turn. A plan so outlandish, so utterly absurd, that it can only have come from one mind. The gods are about to do something they will regret for the rest of time, something that will make Thrym's mockery seem like a pleasantries. The stage is set for a comedy of errors, a grand, theatrical charade that will see the mightiest god in Asgard brought to his knees. The gods are at their lowest point, and the only way out is through a humiliating, ridiculous lie. This is where the story gets really, really good. The silence in the great hall of Asgard is deafening. All eyes are on Loki, the trickster god who just delivered Thrym's impossible demand. The air, once charged with Thor's individual rage, is now heavy with the collective despair of the gods. They are a family of powerful, divine beings, but they are also trapped, faced with a problem that can't be solved with brute force or even a clever strategy. They need Mjolnir, but they can't sacrifice Freya. It's a classic catch-22, a cosmic puzzle box with no apparent solution. And then, as if on cue, the sly smile of Loki spreads across his face, and you know a plan is coming, a plan so outlandish, so utterly ridiculous, that it just might be crazy enough to work. Loki's voice cuts through the tense atmosphere, calm and measured. "We must give Thrym what he wants," he begins, and a collective groan rises from the gods, but not what he expects. He then lays out the masterstroke, a piece of theatrical genius that will turn the frost giant's triumph into his undoing. The common historical fact is that Loki proposes a deception. They will not send Freya to marry Thrym. They will send Thor, dressed as Freya. You watch as Thor's jaw drops. His face, which was just a moment ago a mask of simmering fury, now contorts into an expression of utter, unmitigated horror. His rage at Thrym pales in comparison to the incandescent fury he feels at the suggestion of wearing a dress. "No," he rumbles, a sound like a distant avalanche. "Never. I am a god of thunder, the protector of the realms. I do not wear women's clothing." The very idea is repugnant to him, an insult to his masculinity and his divine purpose. He's the ultimate warrior, the quintessential alpha god, and the idea of him donning a bridal gown is a direct assault on everything he is. But Loki, ever the master of persuasion, is ready. He and the other gods, even Odin. With a heavy sigh of agreement, reason with Thor. They remind him that without Mjolnir, they are all vulnerable. They tell him this is the only way, that this is the ultimate sacrifice for the good of all. It's a great example of a god, supposedly an all-powerful being forced to make a compromise so humiliating it makes you cringe. It's like telling a star quarterback that the only way to win the championship game is for him to dress up as the team mascot and cheer from the sidelines. It's a fate worse than losing. So, with a great deal of grumbling, thunderous foot-stomping, and what you're pretty sure are some very colourful expletives, though we're keeping this PG-13, remember, Thor agrees. The transformation begins. You're there, watching the scene unfold, and it is a sight to behold. The gods of Asgard, the very beings who shape the cosmos, are now playing dress-up. They find a beautiful, flowing bridal gown. It's a piece of divine craftsmanship, woven from gold thread and fine silk, but it's not made for a god with a chest and shoulders like a barn door. They struggle to get it on him, the fabric straining against his immense muscles. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a very, very round hole, or like trying to stuff a Thanksgiving turkey into a cocktail dress. It's not working. The little known detail here is the length to which they had to go to complete the disguise. Freya's famously beautiful necklace, the Brisingamen, is a vital part of the ensemble. They also have to get him to wear a veil, and you can see Thor's frustration as it keeps slipping off his thick, braided red hair. Loki, in his infinite wisdom, is there directing the whole affair. He has a plan. Of course, a secondary disguise for himself. He announces that he will accompany the bride as her maidservant, a subtle move that allows him to control the narrative, to speak for the silent, hulking Freya, and prevent Thor from giving away their game with his sheer inability to act demure. This is also a perfect setup for some comedic gold, as you'll soon see. The transformation is finally complete. You look at Thor, and, well, it's a noble effort. He's wearing the gown, the veil, and the jewellery, but he still looks like a giant. Angry man in a dress. The dress is too tight. The sleeves are stretched thin, and he's standing with his feet planted wide apart. A warrior's stance that no amount of silk and gold can hide. The contrast between the delicate bridal attire and his immense, powerful frame is both comical and deeply sad. It's a moment of absolute humiliation for the Thunder God, and you can see it in his eyes, a silent, simmering rage that promises a reckoning. He looks less like a blushing bride and more like a very confused linebacker who accidentally wandered onto a runway. And so, the journey begins. Loki, in his maidservant disguise, leads the way, a picture of false humility and subservience. Thor, or rather, Freya, follows behind in a chariot pulled by his two trusty goats, Tangjostr and Tangrisnir. This, of course, creates a bit of a problem. Thor's goats, when they pull his chariot, are known to create thunderous rumbles as they travel across the sky. It's a bit of a giveaway. You'd think. A bride arriving on a chariot that sounds like an earthquake. A bit suspicious. But they're desperate. And they're counting on Thrym's vanity and desire for a goddess bride to blind him to these subtle details. The journey to Jotunheimr is a masterclass in silent suffering for Thor. He has to sit still in the chariot, his massive hands clenched into fists in his lap, hidden under the folds of the gown. He can't speak, can't rage, can't act like himself. He has to pretend to be a demure, beautiful goddess, an act he is completely, utterly unsuited for. You can see the pure, unadulterated pain in his eyes. Every bump in the road, every jostle of the chariot is a fresh torment. It's like forcing the toughest person you know to attend a fancy dinner party and pretend to be a ballerina. It's just not going to go well. This part of the myth is often a source of great debate among historians and scholars. Was this a genuine piece of ancient storytelling, meant to illustrate the ridiculous lengths the gods would go to in order to preserve their power, or was it a later addition? A comedic flourish added by scolds to poke fun at the mightiest god. Historians still debate whether Thor's initial refusal was purely out of pride, or if there was a deeper cultural fear of gender bending and its implications for his masculine role as a protector. It's a fascinating question, a look into the complex gender roles of ancient Norse society, and it adds another layer to this already bizarre story. Whatever the reason, Thor is in the dress, and he is miserable. Loki, on the other hand, is having the time of his life. He's playing the role of the humble maidservant to perfection, his eyes sparkling with mischief behind a veil of his own. He's the one in control, the one pulling the strings, and Thor is the puppet. This is a reversal of their usual dynamic, and you can sense Loki relishing every single moment of it. He's probably thinking of all the stories he'll tell about this later, all the jokes he'll make at Thor's expense. This is his element, his playground, and he's not just retrieving a hammer. He's getting his own back at Thor for every time the thunder god ever tried to solve a problem by hitting it with Mjolnir. As they get closer to Thrym's fortress, you can see Thor's resolve beginning to fray. The tension is almost unbearable. He is a god of war, a god of battle, and he is walking into a den of giants dressed as a bride, with a trickster god as his only support. He's going to have to maintain this act, this humiliating charade, until the very last possible moment. The fate of Mjolnir, the fate of Asgard, and the fate of his own dignity all hang in the balance. He has to be convincing, he has to play the part, he has to be Freyr, and as you watch him take a deep, shuddering breath, you know he's about to put on the worst performance of his life. The doors of Thrym's great hall are looming ahead, and the wedding feast is about to begin. The most humiliating part of his journey is about to start, and for the god of thunder, this miserable fate is just getting warmed up. The doors to Thrym's fortress swing open, great slabs of ice and stone groaning in protest, and you are there, ushered into a scene of cold, savage grandeur. This is not the warm, boisterous hall of Asgard. No, this is a place of raw, unyielding power, a cavernous space carved directly from a glacier, its walls and ceiling slick with a thin layer of frost. Giant figures, their forms hulking and grotesque, are seated at tables of jagged stone, their laughter like the breaking of ice. The air is frigid, and it hums with a low, menacing energy. You stand behind Thor as Freyr and Loki as maidservant as they are led to the high table, a place of honour directly across from the giant king. Thrym is a sight to behold, his expression a mixture of triumphant smugness and genuine, if misplaced, adoration. He has Freyr, and he is a very happy giant indeed. The wedding feast begins, and the food is, well, it's giant-sized. Whole roasted oxen, wild salmon the size of a longboat, and barrels upon barrels of mead are brought out. The scent of roasted meat and strong brew fills the cold air, a welcome, if slightly unsettling, contrast to the icy surroundings. For Thor, this is a moment of pure unadulterated torment. He is a god of immense appetite, and you know this is a recurring theme in the sagas, a common historical fact that his hunger is as legendary as his strength. His stomach, a roaring furnace, has been rumbling for a while, and the delicious smells of the feast are a torturous siren's call. He's a warrior, a hero, and he's been forced to fast and feign femininity for this whole ordeal. Now, faced with a buffet of epic proportions, his warrior instincts kick in. His hunger, you realise, is his greatest weakness, a force of nature that is even harder to control than his temper. The feasting begins. The giants eat with a savage, unrestrained glee, tearing at the meat and chugging their mead from massive horns. Thor, with Loki's subtle, panicked warnings ignored, joins in with gusto. You watch in a sort of horrified awe as the god of thunder, disguised as a demure goddess, devours an entire roasted ox, not just a portion, mind you, but the whole thing. Then he moves on to another, and another. He proceeds to eat 8 whole salmon, a feast that would have fed a mortal village for a week, and he downs 3 full barrels of mead, the strong brew sloshing down his throat with a sound like a small waterfall. The feasting giants slowly begin to quiet down, their savage glee turning into a confused silence as they watch their future queen's epic display of gluttony. Thrym, at first, just smiles, thinking his bride is just a big eater. But as the pile of bones grows higher and the barrels of mead empty faster, a tiny flicker of suspicion ignites in his cold, giant eyes. He leans over to Loki, who is standing dutifully behind Freya, and his voice, which is usually like a rock slide, is now hushed and questioning. "Never have I seen a bride with such an appetite," he rumbles, a look of bewilderment on his face. "Did Freya eat 8 salmon and an ox in Asgard and drink so much mead? This is it. This is the moment where the entire plan is about to fall apart. You can almost feel the collective panic from the gods back in Asgard, as if they're watching this whole thing on a cosmic monitor and screaming at the screen. Loki, ever the quick thinker, doesn't miss a beat. He has a lie ready, a perfect, brilliant excuse for Thor's behaviour. "Oh, my king," he says, his voice a picture of meekness and humility. "Freya was so overcome with joy and excitement at the thought of marrying you that she has not eaten for 8 days. She was so anxious to see you, to be with you, that her appetite is simply catching up to her." He delivers the line with such conviction that you almost believe it yourself. Thrym, a creature of vanity and arrogance, beams with pride. He swallows the lie whole. He is so utterly convinced that his own charm and magnificence could make a goddess starve for a week that he overlooks the pure impossibility of the situation. This is a fascinating point, and historians still debate whether Thrym's initial gullibility was a result of genuine infatuation, or if he was so blinded by his own arrogance that he wanted to believe the lies, regardless of how flimsy they were. It's a great little psychological insight into the nature of power and vanity, a testament to how easily a powerful creature can be deceived when they want something badly enough. But the ordeal isn't over, not by a long shot. After the epic feast, Thrym, still glowing with self-satisfaction, leans in to kiss his new bride. This is the most dangerous part of the charade. As he lifts the veil to reveal Freya's face, he is met not with the soft, delicate features of the goddess of beauty, but with a pair of fiery, thunderous eyes. Thor, still filled with silent rage at his humiliation, glares at the giant with a ferocity that would make a mortal's blood run cold. His eyes are not the gentle blue of Freya's, they are a deep, furious red, and they burn with an intensity that would put a bonfire to shame. Thrym recoils in terror, dropping the veil and stumbling backward. "Why are Freya's eyes so terrible?" he stammers, his voice now a panicked whisper. "They burn like embers. I have never seen eyes so fierce." Once again, Loki, the ever-present maidservant, is there to save the day. He has another perfect lie ready, a testament to his sheer genius for improvisation. "Oh, my king," he says again, his voice now laced with a touch of feigned pity. "The poor girl has not slept for 8 nights. for she was so excited at the prospect of coming to Jotunheimr, so eager to marry you, that she could not close her eyes. The lie is even more ridiculous than the first one. But Thrym, a man who desperately wants to believe he is the most desirable being in the 9 realms, eats it up like a second helping of ox. He is so proud, so vain, that he can't see the god of thunder right in front of him. This is an epic example of a little-known detail from the original myth, the specific lies Loki tells, which are so comically absurd they perfectly highlight the depth of Thrym's arrogance. This entire scene is a masterclass in cosmic comedy, and a showcase of how Thor, for all his power, is at the mercy of others. He is the ultimate blunt instrument, and Loki is the sharp, clever mind that wields him. Thor is the star of this show, but he is also the source of all the problems, all the moments of panic. He can't control his hunger, he can't control his rage, and he can't for the life of him act like a lady. He's like a professional wrestler trying to perform Shakespeare. It's just not working. And yet, against all odds, the deception is holding. The giant, blinded by his own pride, is believing the impossible. You're a fly on the wall, watching this play unfold. The tension is almost unbearable, a tightrope walk between total success and utter failure. One wrong move, one thunderous burp, one moment of unthinking rage from Thor, and the whole thing will come crashing down. But for now, the plan is still intact, and Thrym, the proud and foolish giant, is getting closer and closer to what he thinks is his prize. The stage has been set perfectly. The players have taken their places, and the grand humiliating farce is at its climax. The only thing left to do is to complete the ritual. Thrym is about to bring out the very thing they came for, the very thing that will lead to his miserable fate. The wedding feast is coming to an end, and the climax of this ridiculous charade is just around the corner. The wedding feast is winding down, the giant's earlier rowdy merriment replaced by a heavy, satisfied quiet. Thoris Freyr is still sitting at the high table, a mountain of silk and simmering rage, while Loki as maidservant stands behind him, a picture of false calm. Thrym, having had his vanity so thoroughly stroked by Loki's convenient excuses, is now in the throes of a self-congratulatory triumph. His dream is coming true, he is marrying a goddess. You watch as he stands up, a look of sublime self-importance on his face. The moment has arrived. The final, crucial act of this absurd play is about to begin. Thrym, with a wave of his immense hand, calls out for the wedding ritual. The air itself seems to hold its breath, he announces, in a voice that now drips with sickeningly sweet affection, that a sacred part of the ceremony must be performed. The wedding vow is to be sealed with a sacred artifact, a symbol of protection and honour. And what better symbol, he reasons, than the one he just stole? You feel a jolt of anticipation. This is the moment. The common historical fact is that the ancient myth states that the wedding ritual of the giants, or at least this particular one, required the bride's lap to be blessed with a sacred hammer, a detail so specific it almost feels like it was invented just for this very purpose. Historians still debate whether this specific ritual was a genuine custom for giants, or if it was a detail invented to make the god's plan more plausible, a detail specifically designed to set a trap. You watch as a group of hulking giants struggle to bring out the hammer. Mjolnir is a weapon of immense power, but it is also impossibly heavy. It's not a normal object. It's a living artifact, forged in the heart of a dying star. As they drag it into the hall, the air crackles with an energy you can almost feel. The very atmosphere changes, going from the cold, still air of Jotunheimr to something electric, something that smells like a coming storm. The hammer is a raw, physical presence, and you can see Thor's entire body tense as it gets closer. His shoulders, already straining against the delicate silk, seem to grow wider, and you can hear a faint, low hum emanating from his very being. The hammer calls to him, and he, in turn, is being reborn, the giants, with a final grunt. Place Mjolnir squarely in the lap of Freya. The instant the cool metal touches the warm, powerful thigh of the thunder god, everything changes. The disguise, the humility, the quiet rage, it all shatters. The gown, a piece of delicate craftsmanship, rips apart with a sound like a thunderclap. The veil flies off his face, revealing not the soft features of a goddess, but the fiery, red-bearded face of Thor, his eyes now blazing not with suppressed fury, but with unadulterated, divine power. The humiliation is over, the misery is over, the game is over, and now the reckoning is about to begin. Thor stands, a monumental figure of pure, destructive power. He clutches Mjolnir in his hand, and the hall is filled with a sound like 1,000 drumbeats, the thunderous roar of his rage finally unleashed. This is a moment of pure, unbridled fury. He doesn't waste any time. The first thing he does, the first act of his divine retribution, is to turn the hammer on its new owner. He smashes Thrym's head in with a single blow. The giant's smug, triumphant face is replaced by a look of pure, uncomprehending terror, and then he is simply gone. Not a lot of details about that part, for obvious PG-13 reasons, but you get the picture. Thrym's reign of arrogance ends right there, in a flash of divine thunder. But Thor isn't done. Oh no. He is a god who has been humiliated, a warrior who has been made to wear a dress, a hero who has had to act like a simpering fool. This is not just a battle, it's a catharsis. He turns Mjolnir on the other giants in the hall, and the scene becomes a maelstrom of divine power. He's not fighting, he's cleansing. The hammer, a blur of motion, smashes giants to dust, cracks the very foundation of the fortress, and sends shards of ice and stone flying through the air. The giants, who a moment ago were celebrating their triumph, are now fleeing in terror, their roars of laughter replaced by screams of panic. They are no match for him, not now that he has his hammer back. It's like a group of kindergartners trying to fight a professional demolition crew with their lunchboxes. It's not a fair fight, and it was never going to be. The little known detail here is that he doesn't just smash the giants, he smashes all the giantesses, too. A detail often left out of more sanitized versions of the story. Anyone who was in that hall, anyone who was complicit in the theft and the humiliation of a god, is subject to his divine wrath. He doesn't discriminate. He is a force of nature, a red-bearded tornado of raw power, and his retribution is absolute. The hall, once a symbol of Thrym's power, is now a scene of utter devastation. The tables are shattered, the stone benches are in pieces, and the very structure of the glacier fortress is beginning to crack and groan under the sheer force of his blows. You can almost hear the mountains outside trembling in fear. Loki, ever the survivor, is standing in a corner, out of the way of the chaos, a small knowing smile on his face. He orchestrated this entire thing, and now he is watching the payoff, the glorious destructive climax of his plan. He has gotten Mjolnir back, Thor's honour has been restored, and he has also managed to humiliate his friend in a way that will be remembered for all of eternity. It's a win-win for the trickster god, and you can sense his pure, unadulterated glee. This is his art, his form of chaos, and it is a truly magnificent spectacle to behold. Thor, now thoroughly done with his rampage, stands in the middle of the ruined hall, Mjolnir resting on his shoulder. The air is still crackling with power, and the silence that follows the destruction is more terrifying than the noise itself. He has avenged his honour, retrieved his hammer, and taught the giants a very valuable lesson: don't steal from a god, especially not from the god of thunder. He has faced his greatest humiliation and emerged triumphant, his power restored, his purpose renewed. But as you watch him survey the scene, you can't help but wonder what the long-term cost of this humiliation will be. This was just the first in a series of miserable fates. The first time Thor was outsmarted and forced to pay a heavy price for his own power. He has won this battle. But the war, the great cosmic war of tricks and deceptions, is only just beginning. And you know, deep down, that this is not the last time the mighty Thor will be humbled, and that his journey of misery is far, far from over. The echoes of Thor's victory over Thrym still reverberate through the hall of Asgard. He has his hammer back, his honour is restored, and the gods are once again celebrating their might. The humiliation is forgotten, replaced by the warm, fuzzy feeling of a successful mission. But you, as a silent witness, know that this is just a brief moment of triumph, a tiny fleeting flash of light before a much larger, more ominous shadow falls. This story isn't about one-off victories, it's about a hero's long, miserable march toward a preordained destiny, and the next miserable chapter is about to unfold. The victory over Thrym, for all its comedic value, serves to remind the gods of a very important truth: their world is not safe. There are forces of chaos and destruction out there, forces that they cannot simply smite with a hammer, and the greatest of these forces is one that is both intimately tied to them and utterly alien. We're talking about Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. The common historical fact is that this is no ordinary snake. This is a creature of immense power, a child of Loki and the giantess Angerboda, who was cast into the great ocean by Odin when she was just a hatchling. She grew so large that she now encircles the entire world of Midgard, holding her own tail in her mouth, a cosmic Ouroboros that holds the world together and threatens to tear it apart. The mere existence of Jormungandr is a direct challenge to Thor's role as the protector of Midgard. She is the shadow beneath the waves, the quiet, ever-present threat that no amount of thunder can silence. But it is not just her existence that is a problem, it is her prophecy. You see, the fate of Thor and the Midgard serpent is entwined, a tragic, inevitable dance that will culminate in the end of days. Their meeting is fated to happen at Ragnarok, the final, cataclysmic battle of the gods. In that final conflict, Thor and the serpent will meet, and in their epic struggle, they will kill each other. Thor will slay the serpent, but not before being poisoned by her venom and taking 9 steps before falling dead. This is the tragic destiny that hangs over the god of thunder, the long-term misery that no amount of hammer-smashing can prevent her. This is the central conflict of Thor's life. He is a god who embodies action and strength, but he is also a prisoner of fate. He knows what's coming. He knows he's going to die at the hands of the serpent, and so he does what any self-respecting god of thunder would do. He tries to confront his destiny on his own terms. He tries to meet the serpent before Ragnarok, to prove the prophecy wrong, or at the very least, to get a little bit of revenge on the thing that is destined to kill him. This is the first of many such miserable encounters, each one a step closer to his final doom. It's like finding out you have to fight your arch-nemesis on a specific date a few years from now, and your first thought isn't to train, but to go to their house and pick a fight right now, just to get it over with. It's a very Thor thing to do. This brings us to the next chapter of his misery, which is, of all things, a fishing trip. Yes, a fishing trip. You are with Thor as he travels to the home of the giant Hymir, a giant known for his prowess as a deep-sea fisherman. This is not a glorious world-saving journey. It is a mundane, almost comical undertaking for the god of thunder. He is not trying to save the world. He's trying to settle a score with destiny. He arrives at Hymir's hall, a rough, simple place filled with the smell of salt and fish guts. He's there with a purpose, a quiet, single-minded determination that you've never seen in him before. This is a different kind of challenge, a different kind of humiliation. He's not being tricked by Loki. He's trying to trick fate. Thor, in his usual, blunt fashion, tells Hymir that he wants to go fishing. Hymir, being a giant, is unimpressed and a little bit suspicious. He thinks Thor is just a loud, boisterous god with a big appetite and a lot of empty bravado. The sagas hint at the little-known detail that Hymir's hall was a place of constant competition, where gods and giants would challenge each other to feats of strength and skill. Thor's request, while seemingly simple, was a challenge in and of itself. Hymir agrees, but only after warning Thor that the waters are dangerous and that he will need some very specific, very tough bait. Thor, of course, just scoffs and says he'll handle it. The next morning, you watch as they prepare to set sail. Hymir brings out his fishing boat, a sturdy, worn-out vessel built for the harsh seas. Thor, in a moment of pure raw strength, refuses to get in it. He grabs one of Hymir's largest oxen, the biggest and strongest one in the herd, and rips its head off with his bare hands. A gruesome but effective display of his power. He tells Hymir that this is the bait they will use. Hymir, now thoroughly intimidated and a little bit scared, can only just nod. The common historical fact is that Thor's incredible strength was often displayed in these random, almost casual acts of violence, a reminder that even when he was trying to be subtle, he was still a god of thunder. It's like using a flamethrower to light a birthday candle. It's just a little bit much. They set out on the open sea, the vast cold ocean stretching out to the horizon. Hymir rows, his oars cutting through the water with practiced ease. Thor, however, just sits there, an oxen's head in his lap, and you can feel his anticipation, his quiet, simmering energy. He's not fishing for a normal fish, he's fishing for his destiny. Hymir rows far out, to his usual fishing spot, and Thor is not impressed. He tells Hymir to go further, to row to a place no one has ever dared to go. Hymir, now more terrified of Thor than he is of the sea, just does what he's told, rowing until the land is a faint, barely visible speck on the horizon. This is the moment. They have arrived at the prophesied spot. Thor takes the ox's head and, with a great heave, casts it into the sea, a splash that creates a wave that almost capsizes the boat. Then, he waits, and the wait is long and silent, and filled with a tension that you can feel in your very soul. You realize that this is not just a story about a god fighting a monster. This is a story about a man, a warrior, trying to take control of his own fate. He is not willing to sit back and wait for Ragnarok. He is not willing to accept his predetermined end. He wants to meet his nemesis on his own terms, in his own time. This entire sequence is fascinating, because it shows a different side of Thor. He's not just the big, angry, predictable brawler. He is a god who is trying to defy his own myth. He's trying to cheat fate, and you know, deep down, that he can't. This is his misery, his great tragic flaw. He is a being of immense power, but he is also a pawn in a game that was set in motion long before he was born, and the first pawn he tries to remove from the board is the very one that is fated to kill him. It's a sad, beautiful, and utterly miserable spectacle to behold, and you, the silent observer, can only just watch as the line goes taut, and the Midgard serpent, the very shadow of Thor's destiny, takes the bait. The boat bobs on the dark, churning waters, a tiny speck in the vast, unforgiving ocean. The line, a massive rope attached to the head of a freshly severed ox, has just gone taut. You feel the sudden, immense strain on the vessel, and a low, groaning rumble emanates from the depths. This is it. This isn't a fish. This is the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, the great shadow of Thor's destiny. And she has taken the bait. Thor, his face a mask of grim determination, grabs the line with a mighty heave. The force is so immense, so utterly staggering, that the small boat begins to splinter and break under the strain. This is a fight of epic proportions, a tug of war between a god and a creature that encircles the world. You watch in awe as Thor's immense strength is put to the ultimate test. The rope strains and groans, but he holds firm. The power from the other end of the line is like an underwater volcano, a force that threatens to drag him down into the crushing depths. He pulls, and the ocean itself seems to rebel, waves the size of mountains rising and crashing around them, the sky turning a dark, malevolent grey. This is not just a fishing trip anymore, it is a battle for the very soul of the cosmos. The common historical fact is that in his incredible struggle, the power he exerted was so great that his feet went straight through the bottom of the boat, shattering the hull and anchoring him to the seabed. He stands there, a titan of fury and power, with his feet on the seafloor, pulling with all his might against the serpent of the world. The fight rages on, a silent cosmic struggle beneath the crashing waves. Hymir, the giant fisherman, is a picture of abject terror, his face white and his hands trembling as he clings to the remains of his boat. He can feel the power radiating from Thor, the sheer unbridled force that is pulling the world serpent from her slumber. It is a terrifying, beautiful thing to witness. The sea churns into a vortex, a whirlpool of raw energy and spray, and the very air smells of salt and storm. Thor is in his element, a god of thunder fighting his greatest foe, not in the final battle of Ragnarok, but here, now, in the middle of a mundane fishing trip. This is his chance, his one shot at defying fate, at cheating his own destiny. And then, with a final, monumental heave that would have torn a mountain from its roots, Thor pulls the serpent to the surface. The sight is so utterly colossal, so terrifying, that it takes your breath away. Jormungandr's head, a massive, serpentine thing of nightmare, breaks through the waves, her scales shimmering in the dark light like 1,000 polished daggers. Her eyes, two pits of pure malice and ancient hatred, fix on Thor, and a great gout of venom spews from her mouth, a poisonous rain that would melt the flesh from a mortal's bones. The serpent's roar, a sound like 1,000 earthquakes happening at once, shakes the very heavens. This is a moment of pure, unadulterated terror and triumph, a god facing his fated nemesis, a showdown that was meant to wait for the end of time. Thor raises Mjolnir, his eyes burning with a divine, cleansing fury. The hammer, a blur of motion, is charged with the full force of his thunder and lightning, ready to deliver a blow that would not only kill the serpent, but would also, in all likelihood, split Midgard in two. This is his moment of victory. This is his triumph. He is about to cheat fate, to destroy his ultimate foe, and to prove to the cosmos that he, Thor, is a god who cannot be controlled. You can feel the moment, the sheer raw power hanging in the air, the world holding its breath, waiting for the final, cataclysmic blow. And then, in a moment of pure, unadulterated frustration, it all falls apart. Hymir, the terrified giant fisherman, is watching the scene unfold, and he can't take it anymore. The sight of the serpent, the roar of the thunder, the sheer destructive power of Thor, it's too much for him. This is the ill-fated part of the fishing trip. He is a giant. Yes, but he is a giant of the sea, and he knows what this means. He knows the prophecy. He knows that if Thor kills the serpent now, the consequences could be cataclysmic, a premature end to the world. Historians still debate whether Hymir's fear was genuine, or if he was secretly trying to prevent Ragnarok. Knowing the prophecy and fearing the consequences of Thor killing the serpent prematurely, whatever his motivation, Hymir, in a moment of panicked desperation, grabs the knife he uses for cleaning fish, and with a single sharp motion, he cuts the rope. The line, now freed from the immense weight of the serpent, goes slack. Thor, who was ready to deliver the final blow, is suddenly left with nothing but an empty hammer and a broken promise. He turns, his face a mask of furious, uncomprehending rage. He had it, he had her, and now, because of a terrified giant, she is gone. The serpent, now free, sinks back into the depths, her monstrous form disappearing beneath the churning waves, her triumphant, mocking roar echoing in the storm. Thor's rage is a force of nature, a thunderous, all-consuming inferno. He turns on Hymir, and the giant knows, in that moment, that he is a dead man. Thor, with no hammer to swing, no serpent to smite, takes the giant in his massive hands and, in a single, powerful act, smashes him with a blow that sends him flying from the boat, a tiny speck against the vast, unforgiving ocean. The boat, now a shattered wreck, is left to drift on the waves. The mission is a failure. His destiny is still intact. The misery, the frustration, the sheer crushing weight of a fated defeat is all he is left with. You watch as Thor, his heart pounding with a mix of fury and bitter disappointment, makes his way back to shore, pulling the broken pieces of the boat with him. He has faced his greatest foe and had victory snatched from him at the last possible second. He has come so close to defying his fate, to changing the course of history, only to have it all taken away by a single, panicked act. He is still the god of thunder, still a god of immense power, but he is also a god who just had a great big fish get away, and the fish was his destiny, his prophesied end. The misery of this moment, the sheer crushing weight of it, is a lot to bear. He has failed. He has failed to cheat fate, and now he is left to face the inevitable. The taste of bitter defeat still lingers in the air of Asgard. Thor has returned from his ill-fated fishing trip, his hammer still in his possession, but his pride shattered. He is a god who came so close to triumph, only to have it snatched away by a single, cowardly act. The gods see him, and while they don't say it, you can feel the quiet disappointment in their ranks. He is no longer the invincible protector. He is a god who has failed to defy his own destiny. And for Thor, this kind of perceived weakness is a fate far more miserable than any physical wound. He is restless, his divine energy now a caged, humming thing inside him, desperate for a chance to prove his might once again. And so, he embarks on another journey, but this time is not a fated quest. This is a journey of pure, unadulterated hubris, a need to reassert his power after so much humiliation. He travels to Midgard, the realm of humans, with his trusted companion, the ever-clever Loki. They also take with them two mortal companions. A little-known detail of this saga, a brother and sister named Thjalfi and Roskva, who have become their servants after a small mishap involving Thor's goats. This is a party of very different dynamics. The god of thunder, the trickster god, and two very bewildered mortals. It's like a medieval road trip, but with infinitely higher stakes and a lot more magic. Their journey is long and filled with the kind of mundane discomfort that is pure misery for a god. They cross rivers, climb mountains, and traverse vast, empty plains. Thor is on edge, his frustration from the fishing trip simmering just below the surface. He is not in a good mood. They eventually come to the edge of a great forest, a dark, foreboding place. And as they walk, they come across a truly colossal building, a structure so huge that it dwarfs the trees and blots out the sky. It is unlike any fortress or hall they have ever seen. It's a building with no doors, no windows, just a massive, open entrance. They take shelter there for the night, only to discover in the morning that the building is not a building at all, but the midden of an enormous giant named Skrimir, who has been sleeping right next to them all night, snoring so loudly it shook the very ground. This is just the first taste of the deception they will face. They continue to travel with Skrimir, and Thor's patience is worn thin. Skrimir is a gluttonous, annoying giant, and he is a master of trickery. This is a common historical fact. Giants were often seen as masters of deception and illusion. They were not just brutes, they were also cunning and cruel. They eventually arrive at the fortress of Utgard, the great city of the giants, and this is a place of pure, unadulterated illusion. It is a fortress so vast that they have to crawl between the bars of its gate to enter. It is a hall filled with giants, all of them impossibly large, all of them laughing at the small, mortal-sized visitors. The king of this place, the ruler of all the giants, is Utgard-Loki, a cunning, subtle giant with a glint of cruel intelligence in his eyes. Utgard-Loki greets them with a mocking hospitality. He pretends not to know who they are. Despite the thunder god and the trickster being two of the most famous beings in the cosmos, he challenges them to prove their worth, to show off their skills, to compete against his own giants. He sets a series of trials, all designed to make them look weak. The first challenge is for the mortals. Thjalfi, the mortal boy, is a renowned runner, the fastest man in Midgard. He challenges one of Utgard-Loki's giants to a foot race. You watch as Thjalfi runs with a speed that would blur a mortal's vision, his feet barely touching the ground. But the giant, Logi, is faster. No matter how fast Thjalfi runs, Logi is always ahead of him, always wins by a comfortable margin. It is a humiliating, baffling defeat. Then it's Thor's turn. He is the god of thunder, a god of immense strength, and he is a god with a massive rumbling ego. He is ready to prove his might, ready to smash a giant into dust. But Utgard-Loki has a much more subtle, much more cruel form of humiliation in mind. He challenges Thor to a drinking contest. A massive horn is brought out, so large it could hold an entire barrel of mead. Utgard-Loki challenges Thor to empty it in a single drink. Thor, a god with an appetite for both food and drink that is legendary, accepts the challenge with a confident grin. He puts the horn to his lips and drinks. And he drinks. And he drinks. He drinks so much that his face turns purple. But when he pulls the horn away, the level of mead has barely gone down. It is a pathetic, embarrassing failure. He tries again. The same result. He tries a third time, and again. Nothing. The giants in the hall, who a moment ago were silent, now erupt in mocking, thunderous laughter. Thor, the god of drinking, has been defeated by a drinking horn. Humiliated, Thor demands a new challenge, a test of pure strength. Utgard-Loki, with a cruel smile, has one ready. He challenges Thor to lift his cat. A small, grey, unremarkable cat is brought into the hall. It is a creature that seems to pose no threat. A simple pet. Thor, a god who can smash mountains, scoffs at the challenge. He bends down and with a great heave tries to lift the cat from the ground. He struggles. His muscles bulge, his face turns red, and the floor of the hall groans under the strain. He is using all his power, all his divine strength, but he can only lift the cat far enough to get one of its paws off the ground. He is completely, utterly defeated. The cat just looks at him, its eyes glowing with a sort of smug satisfaction, and the giant's laughter is now a deafening, thunderous roar. It is the most humiliating moment of his life. A god of thunder defeated by a kitten. But Utgard-Loki is not done yet. He has one last humiliation, one last challenge for the god who has been brought so low. He challenges Thor to a wrestling match with a crone, an old, wizened giantess named Ellie. The crone is frail and bent with age, and the challenge seems almost comical. Thor accepts. His pride so bruised he can't refuse. He takes hold of her, ready to throw her to the ground with a single move. But when he tries, he can't. He struggles, his body straining against a force he can't comprehend. The crone just smiles, her face a web of ancient wrinkles, and she brings him to one knee. Thor, a god who has wrestled with giants and monsters, is defeated by a little old lady. He loses, and he is now a pathetic, miserable failure in the eyes of everyone in the hall. You watch as the gods and mortals leave the fortress of Utgard, their heads bowed in shame. They have been defeated, humiliated, and made to look weak. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, has failed every single challenge. He couldn't empty a horn, couldn't lift a cat, and couldn't wrestle a crone. He is a broken man, a god whose power has been stripped away, whose dignity has been shattered. The misery of this journey is all-encompassing, a feeling of total, unmitigated defeat. He has not only failed to prove his strength, he has, in the eyes of his enemies and his own companions, been revealed as a fraud. He has been humbled, and his suffering is a quiet, burning fire inside him. Little does he know, however, that he has not been defeated at all. He has just been playing a game he didn't understand, and the grand deception of Utgard-Loki is just getting started. The air outside the fortress of Utgard is cold and unforgiving. You are there with Thor and his companions, leaving in silence, their heads bowed in shame. The laughter of the giants echoes behind them, a cruel and constant reminder of their utter defeat. Thor, the god of thunder, has been humbled in a way that is far more painful than any physical blow. He is a god who has lost, not in a battle of strength, but in a series of humiliating games he couldn't even comprehend. He is a fraud in the eyes of his enemies and a failure in his own heart. The misery is complete, a total, all-encompassing despair. But just as you think the story is over, just as you think Thor's humiliation is absolute, something happens. Utgard-Loki, the giant king, appears at the gate, not with his monstrous giants, but alone. He is not laughing anymore. He has a look of genuine solemnity on his face, and he calls out to them. He says he wants to speak to them before they leave, to offer them a final piece of his hospitality. Thor, his pride still smarting, is ready to fight, to rage. But Loki, the ever-cautious one, holds him back. They listen, and you, the silent observer, are about to hear a truth so mind-bending, so utterly cosmic, that it will change everything you thought you knew about this journey. Utgard-Loki smiles, a slow, knowing smile, and he begins to speak. He tells them that he has used powerful illusions, magic so strong that no one, not even the gods, could have seen through it. He admits that he lied. He reveals that every single challenge was a trick, a deception designed not to humiliate them, but to protect his fortress from their immense power. This is the common historical fact here. The myth's grand reveal is that all of Thor's failures were not failures at all, but rather proof of his world-shaking, unimaginable strength. He was not weak, he was too strong. He starts with the mortal, Tilfi, the runner you raced. Utgard-Loki says, his voice now a low, rumbling secret, was not a giant at all. His name was Logi, and he was the personification of fire itself. He devours everything in his path, and no mortal, no matter how fast, can outrun him. You feel a sense of relief wash over you. The mortal was not slow. He was simply running against a fundamental force of nature. It was an impossible challenge from the start, a trick that was never meant to be won. The little-known detail here is the personification of Logi as fire, not just a simple giant, which adds a beautiful, mythological layer to the trick. Then he turns to Thor, the one who suffered the most. He starts with the drinking horn. The horn you drank from, Utgard-Loki says, was not a simple drinking vessel. It was one end of an illusion. The other end was connected to the great ocean itself, the very sea that surrounds Midgard. Thor's humiliation, you realize, was not humiliation at all. It was an epic, divine feat of strength. He was drinking from the sea, and in his 3 immense gulps, he had lowered the sea level so much that the giants were terrified. The tides receded, the ships in the harbour ran aground, and the giants were in a panic. Thor was not a failure. He was a force of nature so powerful he could move the ocean with his thirst. He was so strong that he couldn't lose. The game was designed to make him fail. But his true strength made it a victory in disguise. It's like being told you can't lift a car, and then finding out you were actually lifting an entire parking garage. Next comes the cat. The cat you tried to lift, Utgard Loki says, was not a cat at all. I used my magic to disguise a creature so immense, so powerful, that it holds the very world together. He pauses for a moment, letting the truth sink in. That cat was the Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr. The silence that follows is deafening. Thor's humiliation, the shame of being defeated by a kitten, was not a defeat at all. It was an act of mind-bending, world-shattering power. He was not trying to lift a cat. He was trying to lift his fated nemesis, a creature that encircles the entire world, and he was successful. He managed to lift one of its paws off the ground. A feat that, Utgard Loki admits, terrified him and his giants to their core. They felt the very world begin to tremble, and they knew, in that moment, that Thor was a god of unimaginable strength. He was not weak, he was a world ender. Finally comes the crone. The crone you wrestled, Utgard Loki says, his voice now a picture of genuine fear, was not a crone at all. She was an illusion, a personification of old age itself. No one, not a god, not a mortal, can defeat old age. She is a force that will one day claim us all. He looks at Thor with a mixture of reverence and terror. The fact that you were able to wrestle with her, to bring her to her knees, is a feat so monumental that it speaks to a power that transcends even the gods. You, Thor, are a god who can fight against time itself. Thor, who was just humiliated, is now a hero once more. A god whose power is not just physical but cosmic. He wrestled with a concept, a force of nature, and he almost won. Utgard Loki has a final confession. He was not trying to humiliate them. He was not trying to be a cruel giant. He was simply terrified. He admits that he used his magic to ensure that they never returned to his fortress, to ensure that Thor would never be able to unleash his full power on their home. He admits that he lied and deceived them, but he did it to survive. He gives a final warning he has no more tricks, no more illusions, and if Thor ever returns, he will not be able to stop him. He then, with a final gesture of magic, disappears, and the fortress of Utgard and all the giants with it vanishes into thin air, a grand illusion that dissipates into nothingness. Thor and his companions are left standing in an empty field, the sun rising on the horizon. The humiliation is gone, replaced by a sense of awe, and in Thor's case, a renewed burning rage. He was not a failure. He was a god of immense, world-shaking power, and he was tricked into believing otherwise. His misery, you realize, was a necessary part of the deception, a cruel and clever trick that revealed his true greatness. It's a testament to the gods' powers that they can be deceived so easily. But it's also a testament to Thor's power that he could be so strong without even knowing it. He has faced his greatest fears and his greatest failures, only to find that they were his greatest triumphs in disguise. This is the bittersweet nature of his existence, a constant dance between triumph and humiliation. Between glory and misery, he has been tricked. But in being tricked, he has proven his worth in a way that no mere battle could have ever accomplished. The road from the vanished fortress of Utgard is silent and empty. The dawn breaks, painting the sky with colours that seem to mock the god's inner turmoil. Thor has been told the truth. He was not a failure. He was a god of such immense, world-shaking power that he terrified the very giants he was meant to be fighting. The humiliation of the drinking horn, the shame of the cat, the despair of the crone, it was all an illusion, a cruel trick that revealed his true, monumental strength. His rage is now gone, replaced by a cold, quiet purpose. He knows what he is. He is a god who can move the seas and wrestle with time itself. But as the warmth of that revelation settles in, you know, as a silent witness to history, that this story is not about triumph, it is about misery. And the greatest misery of all is a fate that cannot be cheated. The Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr. The name now carries a new weight, a new terror. He wasn't just a monstrous catch on a failed fishing trip, he was the cat he couldn't lift, the world-encircling being whose very existence he tried to defy. Thor's 2 brief encounters with the serpent, one in the ocean and one in the hall, were not just moments of conflict, they were rehearsals. They were a cosmic warm-up for the final. Fated confrontation. This is the central, tragic truth of Thor's existence, a common historical fact that is whispered in the sagas and sung in the halls of men. He and the serpent are bound together, fated to destroy each other in the last, great battle. The misery of his life is not a series of unfortunate events, it is a long, slow march toward a predetermined end. The signs begin to appear, not all at once, but slowly, like cracks in an ancient foundation. The seasons begin to fail. The great Fimbul winter, a long, endless winter that covers the world in a blanket of ice and despair. A little-known detail from the prophecies that preceded the end. The gods and mortals grow restless. The bonds of family and society begin to fray, and the world itself feels like a frayed, unravelling rope. This is the prelude to Ragnarok, the final, cataclysmic battle that will consume all of the 9 realms. The gods, who once seemed so eternal, now seem tired, their faces lined with the knowledge of what is to come, and at the centre of it all is Thor, the mighty god of thunder, who knows that his destiny is not to save the world, but to die trying. The battle begins. The skies tear open. The giants of Muspelheim, led by the fire giant Surtur, pour forth in a river of flame and destruction. Loki, ever the trickster, is there too, not as an ally, but as an enemy, leading a host of undead and monsters against the gods. The very heavens are a battlefield, but for Thor, there is only one foe, only one purpose. He has no time for the lesser battles. His eyes, his heart, his very soul are fixed on the serpent, Jörmungandr, a colossal being of venom and malice, rises from the ocean, her monstrous form so immense she fills the sky. The waves of the ocean crash over the world as she thrashes, and her roar is a sound that breaks the hearts of gods and mortals alike. Thor stands on the battlefield, not in his dress, not as a fisherman, but as a warrior, his armour gleaming, his hand gripping Mjolnir with a fierce, final resolve. He is not fighting to win, he is fighting to fulfill his destiny. He is fighting for the honour of his world, for the sake of a sacrifice that will allow a new world to be born from the ashes. He unleashes the full force of his power, a storm of thunder and lightning that is unlike anything the world has ever seen. The sky is a canvas of divine fury. He charges toward the serpent, and in a final, cataclysmic clash of power, they meet. The battle is short and brutal. Thor, a whirlwind of divine power, a god of raw, untamed fury, smashes the serpent with Mjolnir. The sound is so immense it shatters the mountains and splits the earth. The serpent screams, and a great gout of venom, a poisonous rain that would melt the flesh from a mortal's bones, spews from her mouth, covering Thor in its acidic, burning fluid. He has done it. He has killed the serpent. The prophecy is fulfilled. But the prophecy, you remember, has a final, cruel twist. The venom, a slow-acting poison, is already at work. Thor stands over the body of his fated enemy, Mjolnir in his hand, a victor in the final battle. But he is a god who is dying. He takes a step, his body racked with the burning venom, and then another, and another. The sagas tell us a small, heartbreaking detail that he takes 9 steps. 9 steps away from the body of his foe, a small, final act of defiance, a final, miserable walk away from his victory, and on the 9th step he falls. He falls to the earth, the thunder god, the protector of the realms, slain by a fated foe, not in glorious battle, but in a quiet, miserable moment of poison and defeat. The prophecy is complete. The world as they know it is over. The misery of Thor's life is not just a series of funny, embarrassing stories. It is a slow, gradual realization that no matter how powerful you are, No matter how much you fight, no matter how much you cheat, you cannot escape your fate. He was a god of immense strength who was forced to be weak. He was a god of victory who was fated for defeat. He was a god who was the very best at what he did. And his life, in the end, was a long, beautiful, and utterly miserable march toward a predetermined, tragic end. Historians still debate whether this prophecy was a fatalistic acceptance of destiny or if it was a final, desperate plea for a new, more just world to emerge from the ashes of the old. But for Thor, the answer is simple. It was the only way to be a hero. It was the only way to be a god. It was his misery, and it was his glory. The story is over now. The worlds have ended. The old gods have fallen, and a new one has been born from the ashes. The thunder god's journey, his struggles and his triumphs, his embarrassments and his glories, are all a part of a past that is now a story. The sounds of battle have faded. The screams of the dying have gone silent. The chaos has been replaced by a quiet, a profound, all-encompassing peace. Let the final images of this journey fade from your mind now. The sight of Thor in his bridal gown, the terror of the fishing trip, the humiliation of the kitten, the glory of his final stand. It is all just a story now, a distant memory, a whisper on the wind. Let your breathing slow. Let the tension in your body drain away. The journey is over. The gods have fallen. The world is at peace. All that is left is the quiet. Let the gentle hum of the fan, the soft darkness of the room, and the stillness of the night carry you away now. You have earned your rest. And now, good night, and have sweet dream.